Okay. I am just finishing up Rhythm of War by Sanderson. So, wow. Okay. Stormlight Archive planned out to be 10-book series in 2 parts, 2 5-book things. This is book 4. Book 5, he says he's like 25% done with it. I think it's going to be called Unhallowed Stones. So like the first book, Way of Kings, is kind of Kaladin's book. Words of Radiance is Shallan's book. Oathbringer is Dalinar's book. Rhythm of War, I'm assuming, is Navani's book or Vinley's book. She's like one of the singers that were formerly called the Parshindi, the Parshmen, and then they were called the Voidbringers, and then we learned that the humans were actually the Voidbringers, so then they started calling them the Listeners, and then they started becoming fused, so most of them are called the Fused, but then you got these ones that are now rebelling against Odium, that are like trying to do their own thing and live in peace, so those ones are called the Singers? The Singers. So they've gone through like 6 or 7 iterations of what they're being called. There's a picture of one of them in here somewhere. There's so many pictures, I don't know if I can find it. So there's a lot going on here. I like this book almost. I don't know. Oathbringer and this book are about as good as each other. Words of Radiance is still my favorite. Way of Kings, I guess, is my least favorite because I didn't know what the hell was going on during it, but now that you know what is happening, it's probably the best of all if you went back and reread it, because then you know what's going on, but it's like... And they say the Malazan Book of the Fallen is supposed to be even, like, 10 times worse, like, crazier. So, there's still so many things from Way of Kings that we haven't figured out yet, like the death rattles, people that were dying and they were giving out these prophetic messages as they died. Feverstone Keep, we still don't know where the hell that is or what it is. And then you have with the Dawn Shard, this whole thing with the Dawn Chant, whatever the Dawn Chant is. And they this book kind of got into the, those little things that eat Stormlight, or whatever they're called. And last book, I predicted that Lift was going to be special because she's like a cultivation radiant instead of an honor radiant. So she like eats food, turns it into life light. So it's not Stormlight, it's called Life Light. So there's... Okay. So there's this god. Here's the story of what I figured out of the religion, or the whole... There used to be this god of everything, the Cosmere. Not just Roshar that these books take place in, but all of the planets in the Cosmere. And that god, something happened and split him into 16 pieces, shards of this god. So Roshar, this system, which has another planet called Braze, that's on the other side of the sun, in a farther orbit. Those are ruled by these 3 aspects of God: honor, odium, and cultivation. Blue, green, and black, I guess you would say, is the color of their light. So you got Stormlight, Life Light from cultivation, and Void Light, which is like a black light from odium. In this book, you get into a whole lot of things about how those different lights can mix. Like oil and water, they're not supposed to mix, but if you use an emulsifier, which is what the Rhythm of War kind of is, it's like 2 tones, like it's all based on vibrations and sounds. You can get the lights to combine, and you can make things that can permanently kill Spren, different kinds of Spren. You can have one that kills odium Spren, one that kills honor Spren, and one that can kill cultivation Spren, I guess, if you combine the 3 different ways. So that's really interesting because people can permanently die now in the next book. Like normally the void, or the fused, when you kill them, they come back. And when you kill a radiant human, a new human can become radiant using that Spren that was bonded to them. But now they're killing Spren permanently. And there's this old bondsmith from before that's kind of crazy. and he had like these Spren that are supposed to be like their bodies. You only see them in Shadesmar, and he had them like he was like dissecting them and doing experiments on them in the real world, which shouldn't even be possible. So that's something. And then, yeah, it's crazy. Kaladin took his 4th ideal, even though he kind of retired to become a surgeon for a little while. And he's like, yeah, they get into a whole lot of like, there's a lot of talk about depression and suicide, PTSD, disabilities. There's a lot of like big stuff like that. What was the other ones? Racism, maybe, kind of. But yeah, what was I saying about Lift? So Lift, Taravangian, and Dalinar were all touched by cultivation. So Dalinar is the honor guy that's touched by cultivation. Lift is the... Wait. She's just a pure cultivation. And then Odium, he was like possessing this guy named Race, who was killed with Seth's sword, the Nightblood. Taravangian pulled it out and stabbed him with it, and then Taravangian became Odium at the end. Spoiler alert. So Taravangian is now like the Odium and cultivation combined. So there's like a green and blue and a black person now. An edge dancer, a bondsmith, and then Odium, whatever the fuck that is. Really weird stuff. And plus the whole book, like most of it takes place with an invasion on Urithiru, and the Radiants all kind of lose their powers. So like the power creep that you get from Oathbringer, everybody getting super strong, now everybody's weak again, so there's a lot of fighting, and like some main characters died, and it's kind of like when you're playing XCOM and you build up your soldiers, and they get a bunch of skills, and then they get killed, and then you can just recruit another noob and like level him up, so now you start caring about that guy. But you don't forget the ones that are like, oh man, I really missed that guy when he was like a level 10 sniper or whatever, right? Pretty cool how they did that. What else happened? Shallan kind of did this crazy thing where she had like split personalities, and then they all kind of came back in together into one, and they went into Shadesmar. And then they also revealed this thing about how Shadesmar, you can use it to travel between planets of the Cosmere. So like, if Shadesmar is like land in the real world is water, or it's not water, it's like a bunch of beads in Shadesmar, and land in Shadesmar is water in the real world, then what is the other planets? How does that all fit in? Are they all connected into one land in Shadesmar? Because there's like humans that are from other planets in Shadesmar, and that's how they got there. Kind of weird. You got the thing with Adlin and his Shardblade, Mayalaren or whatever. She was like a Deadeye that he's kind of bringing her back to life, and she starts talking at the end. So that's kind of meaning like, if Spren can die and come back, then that changes all the rules. Because it's not really dying unless you use this new light. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in this series. So I was thinking, that's every title of all the books are based on books that are actually in the universe. Eventually there's going to be a book called The Dawn Chant, I think, because isn't that one of the books in the book? Dawn Chant like explains a bunch of things about Dawn Singers or something like that. Maybe that'll be when they do like Venli's book, or one of the Parshendi characters. There's also Raboniel. She was like this lady of whispers or something. What was her name? She has like some kind of a title. Her and Navani were working together to figure out all these, like experimenting with the void light and sounds and what do you call cymatics, when you use sound to like make sand vibrate on a piece of metal and like see what it looks like. Then you got Tower Light too. I forgot about Tower Light. So Tower Light is a combination of Storm Light and Cultivation Light, Life Light, I think. And then you got anti-void light. Wait, now I'm getting confused because if you got anti-void light, it's a combination of stormlight and void light, right? Or it's like you use different intent when you what is it called? When you investiture, when you use your investiture, and they're using like these knives to like pull Spren out along the blade and go into this gem and trap them, and then the tower Spren, the sibling was getting pissed off because she was trapping Spren. It's really weird. There's all these Fabrial things where they split the gems and it splits the souls of Sprens, and like it's kind of, you're making things that let you kind of fly like Batman, but it rips your arm off almost, and it's like, they were talking about like Urathiru was this big tower, and it's like way up in the mountains, and they had this field that was like inhibiting their powers. So they were like, what if we just jump off the tower and hopefully our powers will come back before we hit the ground, and then we can fly away if we don't just splat and die. Pretty risky maneuver. I mean, pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty exciting book. So I think there's supposed to be like a mini novella between this one and the next one, even though he's like, I think they're saying 2024 on the next book, but he's already like 25% done. Yeah, I guess that would be 2024 then, wouldn't it? Yep, so I'll probably have to read Emperor's Soul and Elantris and Warbreaker next year. And maybe finish up Mistborn Era 1 if I could do that. It's like 5 books right there of more Sanderson. So I gotta think. If you haven't read these books, get into them. They're pretty dope, even though they're gigantic and huge. Makes you want to go back and read the first book again, though. I'm trying to imagine like if there could be a video game based on this where you find like fallen soldiers that they have shard blades or something, a shard plate that you could like level up with and become radiant and like level up your ideals and get stronger and shit. Sounds pretty dope, but it's so complicated. But it sounds like it could be a video game.